No one had lived in 4C for years, but someone there kept knocking. In a dilapidated apartment complex on the outskirts of town, Tasha had just moved into her new home. At 30 years old, she was quiet and reserved, but her curiosity often got the better of her. The building itself seemed to whisper secrets, its walls holding memories of countless lives that had passed through its halls. As Tasha unpacked her meager belongings, the building manager's warning echoed in her mind. "Ignore apartment 4C, he had said, his eyes darting nervously. It's been empty since 2019. She had nodded, not thinking much of it at the time. After all, every old building had its quirks and stories. But on her very first night, as the clock struck to 11 a.m., 3 slow, deliberate knocks echoed from across the hall. Tasha's eyes snapped open, her heart racing. She lay frozen in her bed, straining to hear any further sound. The silence that followed was almost more unnerving than the knocks themselves. Slowly, cautiously, Tasha crept to her door. Her hand trembled as she approached the peephole, her breath fogging the small glass circle. What she saw made her blood run cold. A woman stood outside her door, head tilted down, long black hair obscuring her face like a dark curtain. Tasha's breath caught in her throat as the woman's lips moved. "You live in the wrong one," came a soft, unsettling voice that seemed to seep through the door like a cold mist. Panic rising in her chest, Tasha fumbled for her phone, dialing the front desk with shaking fingers. The night clerk's voice was groggy and confused. "Ma'am, there shouldn't be anyone on your floor at all. Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" Tasha's eyes darted back to the peephole. The hallway was empty, no trace of the woman remained. She mumbled a thank you to the clerk and hung up, her mind reeling. Sleep eluded her for the rest of the night, every creak and groan of the old building setting her nerves on edge. As dawn broke, casting long shadows across her room, Tasha found herself drawn to the door of apartment 4C. The warning to ignore it tugged at the back of her mind, but her curiosity was overwhelming. With a deep breath, she reached out and touched the worn wood of the door. To her surprise, it creaked open at her touch. What lay beyond the threshold defied all logic and reason. There wasn't a room inside at all. Instead, a large, ornate mirror filled the entire doorway, its surface slightly warped and clouded with age. Tasha's reflection stared back at her, but something was terribly wrong. Her reflection was smiling, but she wasn't. Tasha stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her ears. She slammed her own door shut, sliding down to the floor as her legs gave way beneath her. What had she seen? What was happening in this building? As night fell once more, Tasha huddled in her bed, every nerve on high alert. Then, at precisely 11 a.m., the knocking began again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks that seemed to reverberate through her very soul. This time, Tasha didn't answer. She buried her head under her pillow, trying to block out the sound, but the knocking persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. It was as if the entire building was shaking with the force of it. Days turned into weeks, and Tasha's life became a waking nightmare. The knocking came every night without fail, always at 2:11 a.m. She tried to leave, to escape the madness that seemed to permeate every corner of the building, but something always drew her back. It was as if the apartment had sunk its claws into her, refusing to let go. Other tenants began to whisper about the strange woman in 3C Tasha's apartment. They spoke of her haunted eyes, the way she jumped at every sound. Some swore they had seen her talking to herself in the hallways, her gaze fixed on the door of 4C. Tasha knew she was changing, could feel it in the very marrow of her bones. Her reflection in the mirror, any mirror, no longer seemed quite her own. The smile that greeted her each morning was a twisted parody of joy, a rictus grin that never reached her eyes. One night, as the familiar knocking began, Tasha found herself moving towards her door. Her hand reached for the knob of its own accord, her mind screaming in protest even as her body betrayed her. The door swung open, revealing the empty hallway beyond. But it wasn't empty, not really. There, standing before the mirror that was apartment 4C, was a figure. It turned slowly, revealing a face that was both familiar and terrifyingly alien. It was Tasha, but not Tasha. This version of herself had eyes that were black as pitch, a smile that seemed to split her face in two. "Welcome home," the other Tasha said, her voice a discordant melody that set Tasha's teeth on edge. "We've been waiting for you." As if in a trance, Tasha stepped forward. The mirror rippled like water as she passed through, the world around her shifting and changing. She found herself in a twisted version of the apartment building, where shadows danced on the walls and whispers echoed from every corner. The other Tasha, the thing that wore her face, led her down endless corridors. They passed door after door, each one bearing a number that seemed to writhe and change as they walked by. You see, the creature said, its voice dripping with malice, everyone lives in the wrong apartment at first, but we help them find where they truly belong. They came to a stop before a door that bore the number 4C. This is where you've always been meant to be. The thing said, its grin widening, impossibly. All you have to do is knock. Tasha's hand rose, seemingly of its own volition. She wanted to scream, to run, to wake up from this nightmare. But her fist connected with the wood. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. The door swung open, revealing a room that was both familiar and utterly wrong. It was her apartment, but twisted, corrupted. The walls oozed with shadows, and in the center stood a mirror. The same mirror that had been the door to 4C. Now, the creature said, its form beginning to fade like mist. You wait, and when someone new moves in, you knock. You show them the way, just like I showed you. Tasha found herself alone in the room, her reflection in the mirror now matching the twisted smile that had spread across her face. She understood now. She was home. And when the knocking started again the next night, no one answered. If this gave you chills, drop a like and follow for more haunted stories like this. The boundaries between reality and nightmare are thinner than we think, and sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we become